Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Coming up.
Certainly the past 3 or 4 stand-up shows I've done have been me trying to work out some things in my life.
Would you say that now you've found your tribe?
I think comedy in a way was me trying to find people who were weird like me.
Are you still angry?
Yeah, probably more so. It's become more acceptable to be unkind and cruel in a way it didn't used to be.
Misery is only happy when it's got companionship.
Definitely.
And when you, in later life, received your diagnosis formally, what was its significance, its impact? You're listening to The Hurt Locker, podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. Tonight we have comedian and author Joe Wells. Joe,
hello.
Welcome to The Hurt Locker, I should say. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. And our producer Tim was talking about listening to you on your podcast when he's away on holiday and all of that. So we'll touch on that.
When you do podcasts, you sort of, they just go out into the ether, and it's so weird when you meet people that listen to your podcast. You're like, oh, you've spent hours with me, and yeah. So I'm always very flattered when people listen to the podcast.
So I know I've done a little introduction in terms of being a comedian and an author, but for the benefit of the few people who don't know you, who is Joe Wells?
I think it's most people. I'm a comedian, a writer. I do a podcast. I am autistic, so a lot of my stuff is about that. That's me really. So I try to do, I guess, and this is what they tell you not to do, but I try to use stand-up as sort of therapy for myself. I think a lot of certainly the past 3 or 4 stand-up shows I've done have been me trying to work out some things in my life. So if you watch those shows, that hopefully it's sort of visible how I'm
definitely
trying to work stuff out.
So how's your day been today?
Today, I've been doing, which I'm happy to do. I've been doing a lot of podcasting today. I've actually been virtually near you because we're talking to some students at Liverpool John Moore University.
John Moore's University, yeah.
Yeah. So I did a sort of book reading talk thing for them, and we also recorded an episode of our podcast, which will be out in December with Ed Byrne, which was good fun. And other than that, I've got a tiny baby, so I've been trying to get her to sleep, and then be giving her dinner.
How old's she?
She's just over a year, so she's probably sort of like becoming aware of things now, which is wonderful. It's a very nice stage. She was not a good sleeper for the first 3 months, so the first 3 months were hard, but now it's a nice place she's in.
Good. I should have said congratulations as well.
Thank you.
Because you're a new father, how was that for you?
I think, well, the first, like I said, the first few months, she would only sleep on you, she would only sleep on you. It was just shifts, so it was like, I was very, very privileged / I worked very hard for the year running up to it, where I'd saved some money. So for 3 months I did writing and I did local gigs. So sort of a couple of nights a week I'd go and do a local gig. But I had sort of 3 months of sort of paternity leave, which meant that I could do the night shift. So I would have her till 5 a.m, and then we'd swap, and then I'd sleep until the early afternoon, and then I'd get up, do a gig, do some writing, catch up with work, tidy up around the house, and then my wife would go to bed early and we'd swap again. So those first few months were just, it's strange because have you got kids? Or
I have indeed. People
it's sort of like, it's so tiring, but it's also kind of peaceful because they don't do much, so you've just got to have them. And it's not hectic in the way that now, like, it's like, oh, we're going to this baby group, we've got to do this, and this, we're always rushing. But it takes all your time. And yeah, so it's a strange thing. But now she's it's sort of hectic in a different way, where she's sort of not quite running, but crawling around faster than I can run.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so but she's doing
Being
great. Yeah.
curious.
Yeah. She's got such an eye for things that she's not meant to have. So
All
like she's
babies
got
have
loads of
that.
wonderful toys, but she wants to touch the wheels of the pushchair. That's her favorite thing, to touch the wheels that have been in the mud. She loves that. She really wants to get into we've got like a little porch thing in our house. She wants to get into the porch where like everyone's dirty shoes are. And yeah, if that's left even a tiny bit open, she makes a beeline
She's
for it and
there.
wants to open
She's
it up.
there.
Yeah.
She's there. And maybe too early to ask you, but would you like more children?
No, I think one is good. We've had a good one, so I think that's it for us.
Okay. Did you grow up in a large household yourself? Do you have siblings?
I've got a sister, so no, not a large household. Yeah, fairly sort of small C conservative household. You know, my parents lived in a sort of in the suburbs. They weren't wealthy, but they weren't impoverished. I got a sister, and you know, we went to the local school, and fairly sort of norm, you know, for what as much as anything is normal, fairly normal upbringing.
Okay, I want to touch on your new work, but I was informed that you supported the likes of Alexis Sale from Liverpool, Frankie Boyle, etc., and that a lot of your material was very much around the right wing, fighting against the right wing, fascism, etc. What led you into?
Well, I think I was. So I saw Mark Thomas at a young age, and
Okay.
whilst those those politics still are my politics, I think I realised that what drew me to political comedy was being sort of angry and rallying against stuff. And so I think that's why part of the reason why I was doing some of that stuff was feeling like I liked Mark Thomas. I liked the way that he was sort of. I felt like things in my life and in the world were unfair, and it felt like a place to sort of be angry about how unfair things are.
Are you still angry?
Yeah, probably more so. But I think I'm old enough to. I think what I do more now is sort of. I've got my sort of lane of the stuff that I talk about, and that feels more productive to do stuff in that lane. But yeah, I felt like you, because I knew you were talking about sort of things that upset me, and I think that I have. It's quite hard to think about, because I think I've got quite a good life. You know, I'm quite happy in my life. But the only thing that sort of makes me anxious is the state of the world. You know, and I think that there's a growing. I think, but yeah, politically, the world is in a place where we're seeing things which I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, and we're seeing stuff that was quite fringe become quite mainstream. And I think we're seeing cruelty and unkindness becoming very, very mainstream politically and in our sort of culture. And I find that very depressing and scary, particularly when you've got when you've got kids. Like, you've then got more of an investment in the future. You know, it matters which way which way the world is going, in a way that it didn't matter in quite the same way before. And so yeah, am I still angry? I'm more worried now. Really, I think maybe I'll go through the stages of grief and I've got to depression or whatever it is.
I'm pausing because I was thinking about the question I asked you about would you have more children, and I don't know if that's going to change in the future, but it's interesting now politically, because of geopolitics, it's kind of informed how you feel about being a parent, how you feel about your own family. Do you worry about them a lot?
Don't worry about, sorry.
Your family a lot?
The truth is no. The truth is I've got like, if I'm honest, I've got quite a good life, where I do a job that I really like. And, and with a baby, you're just busy all the time, So like you end up worrying about, getting to the baby group on time, or about, oh no, she hasn't had her dinner yet, or she hasn't had a nap. We've got to try and get her to have a nap. So actually that takes up a lot of your brain space. But I think if there's anything that makes me anxious, it's the state of the world and, what world my daughters are going to be growing up into. Yeah, I hope that I think the internet can make you think things are worse than they are. I think most people I meet in person still feel kind of like they are decent. So I think there is hope there, but yeah, it's it does yeah, that probably is the one thing that sort of still worries me a bit is where the world is going.
If things got to an extreme, not saying that they haven't already in the UK, would you ever contemplate leaving the UK? And if so,
yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think I wouldn't want to, because I'm sort of like a sort of small p patriotic. I think I think there are loads of things about the UK that I really love and think are brilliant. I love British comedy and British music, and and I think that it's my home. But yeah, I think that but having a baby has changed my priorities, where the main priority is looking after my family in the way. Yeah, I mean, obviously, my wife was also a priority before, but it does change your priorities a bit.
Okay. So you're on the Hurt Locker. We're happy to have you here. Diving in. What's in your Hurt Locker?
What are the things that upset me? Well, I think that like I said, I think today it's at the moment, I'm pretty happy, and I think the thing that hurts me is seeing. It's not the thing is I think it's not politics. Not like that people are voting for the wrong people. It's not that. It's I think there's like a growing thing of it's become more acceptable to be unkind and cruel in a way it didn't used to be. And I think I've always been able to find some common ground with most people, and I think my sort of core values. That's not to say that that I've always stuck to these values, but my core, I think we should be kind to people. I think we should look out for people. I think we should try and see the best in people. I think we should pursue sort of lives that are full of happiness and peace and love, and that all that sort of hippie stuff. And I think that I've seen a growing thing of people, sort of new politics, which doesn't even sort of there's that sort of thing where there's like a fetishization of like being miserable at the moment as well, and I find that really disturbing. That people want to be. It's sort of pushed as strength, like when actually what it is being really closed off and not being close to other people and not enjoying anything. And I find that quite sort of disturbing, that I think I've got quite a happy life, and I'm in some ways very privileged, but in other ways it hasn't taken a lot to make me very happy in my life. I've got security in where I live. I've got a job that I like. I've got a wife who I love and a baby I love. And, it's not, I don't have something which is so out there that is unachievable for other people. And I find it, I find it sort of quite disturbing that there's a growing trend of people who are able to, who I think would be able to sort of pursue the life that I have pursued, but are sort of choosing to pursue a life which is being closed off from other people, and where they're sort of working themselves into the ground, and where they're not getting an enjoyment out of it. And I think choosing is maybe a crass way of putting it, but I think that there is this sort of thing the way people are. Am I making sense? You know,
You are making sense. I was just going to add, misery is only happy when it's got companionship.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Yeah, I think that for me, a lot of my happiness has come from, as well as my relationships with other people, has also come from like culture and art and music and all that, and music in particular, comedy as well. And those are things which I really value. And the sort of sounds maybe very sort of I would think this, wouldn't I, working in the arts, but the way in which it feels like we don't value culture and the arts and music, etc., feels quite sort of disturbing to me, because to me that's quite a key part of happiness.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll come back to that. Tell me more about this, your experiences now of fatherhood. What does it mean to you? What are the pillars of its success? I know it's early days for you.
I think I'm enjoying it a lot. Not, it sounds like I didn't think I'd enjoy it, but I'm enjoying it even more than I thought I would. I think it's certainly put a lot of things in perspective. I'm just quite happy to be with my baby, and I care a lot less about career stuff in the way that I sort of do and don't. So I no longer care if I get on TV or if I get, the big shiny things which are dangled in front of you in this industry. But I really care about being able to keep making a living from comedy.
Yes.
So if I can have this for the rest of my life, I'm happy, where I've got spare time that I can spend time with my baby and I can do a job that makes me happy. That's what I want. And I think that I used to really stress about, has this TV producer come to see me? Or, is this person am I getting the right opportunities? Am I doing this, and this? Am I dropping off on social media followers? I used to have stuff get more views or whatever. And now I don't care about that at all, other than it being a means to an end of keeping doing what I do and keeping doing comedy.
It sounds like you found a balance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's not even a balance. I'm very, very, I am lucky that I only do I don't have any days where I'm like, oh fuck, I've got to do that tomorrow. Maybe when I've got an early morning flight, that's the only time when I've had a few times the past year where I've had to get up at like 4 a.m. after a gig or something. That I hate. But most of the time I'm either doing my job that I really love, or I'm spending time with my family who I really love. I've been able to have a very nice life. So yes, it's not even balanced. I think I've been fairly, I guess, probably there's an element where this connects to autisticness, where I didn't always cope well in proper jobs. And I think I was very lucky in my 20s. I had a quote unquote proper job that was very supportive and nice, but that I did part-time alongside comedy. But yeah, I've always sort of felt I had to pursue the arts, because that felt like the thing that would work for me. Okay. And it has. It's worked out well.
What have your family thought of your success?
I think it's hard to. I think that they are very proud of me. I talk about this in my new show. My dad is someone who does not talk about feelings, so it's like, but so you have to look at what he does rather than what he says. So I write for a preschool show, and he has that show on series link. So he watches this kids cartoon every week, because I write some episodes for it. And so I think he's very much someone who sort of is proud through showing rather than saying it. And I think he'd find that incredibly soppy, talking about being proud of it. I'm so proud of you, son. I think he'd hate that. And I think that I think there's also a bit of a thing where my career path is so unique to the internet age, where I think for you know, I'm not on television really. I've done a few little bits, but I'm not really on television. I have a small following of mentally ill people on the internet who like what I do, and they listen to my podcasts and they come to see my shows, and you know, and it's all through the internet. So I think it's sort of hard to, sometimes it can be a bit hard for family members of an older generation to sort of understand what it is.
Okay.
And oh, do you know, it's the one, I don't get nervous for gigs, but when I have family come to see me, it makes me really nervous, because it's like, I need you to at least see the other people, that this is something that's sort of, that other people are seeing value in. Because I think what I do isn't for everyone. You know, I do when, particularly when I'm touring, you know, I'm doing hour-long shows about, you know, sort of disability rights theories, and you know, I'll talk about Donna Williams and Dina Murray and people like that. That's not for everyone. And I think that my latest tour, I did a big show locally. I had family come, and also some people from our NCT group came, which was so nerve-wracking. And yeah, you know, I'm quite aware that the comedy I do is not for everyone, you know. And I think where it's some people, if you're in a band, people have an idea of that's not, a band might be good, but not for you, you know. So if I was in a heavy metal band, people would be able to get their head around going, oh, I don't really like heavy metal music, but it's obviously good, people really like it, and that, but it's not for me, but it's good for those people. But I think comedy, that's sometimes harder for people to get their head around, to go, oh, well, that's not the comedy for me, but some people like it, you know. And I think I am, if I was a band, I would be a sort of really a weird heavy metal, weird jazz band or something like that only a few people really liked, but those people liked.
Okay. Okay, I understand. What's your sister thought of your success?
Yeah, I think she's happy for me, I think. We're not super close, but we see each other sort of every couple of months. Yeah, she's a teacher, and that was another nerve-wracking gig. Was I went and spoke to the kids at her school, and about being a writer, and it went well in the end. But I was so nervous about it, because she was there as well, and I wanted to do well for her, and yeah, and also I didn't know what to. I do comedy club for kids, but they're a bit older, and she's an infant school teacher, so they're like 6 or 7. Yeah, so but that was once I was talking to them, and the kids are really on board, and that was fun, but that was a nerve-wracking thing, you know.
Okay, you were diagnosed. How recently was it for autism?
Well, it's a bit complicated, because I was informally diagnosed as a child. I didn't know about this, and then it all came out in my late 20s, and then was formally diagnosed. I think I was 29. Yeah, I think maybe I just turned 30 when I was formally diagnosed. So yeah, so that was when it sort of when I knew. But there was discussions when I was a child, and it was decided that there's slightly differing accounts on this. I don't remember it being put to me, but apparently I was told, it was suggested to me that I have the diagnosis of what would have been Asperger's when I was a teenager. Okay. And I didn't want that diagnosis.
You didn't want that?
Well, I don't remember this conversation. Okay. But it's not to say that it didn't happen. You know, this is a slight, there's differing accounts from me and my parents. It's quite likely that they did, you know, this was talked about around me, and I sort of shut it down. You know, I think when I was going through therapy I had very severe OCD, and I think I certainly felt a lot of shame around the OCD, and it's quite likely that they did float the what would have been Asperger's, and I would have maybe shut that down. That's quite possible.
Okay. And when you, in later life, received your diagnosis formally, how did it feel for you? What was its significance, its impact?
It made sense of a lot of things I'd felt growing up, you know, and explained why there were things which felt like inadequacies, and I was able to see that in the context of autism, and I at that point had read Steve Silverman's Neurotribes, which I think is a really important book, and I'd also been working with young people with that's the thing with this. I don't, so much of the terminology which is used I don't like, but the language would have been young people with SEND, so with special needs, and so yeah, I think it was. I'm glad in a way that I was diagnosed later, because I was diagnosed in a place where I had access to the sort of way of thinking, when I'd read about neurodiversity and that sort of way of thinking, and I was able to see it not as something that I had wrong with me, but as a different type of brain, and where I'd met more autistic people, and a lot of those autistic people I really liked and got on with, and I was able to go, oh, that's like me. So I felt more like I was part of a community, I guess, in a way that I don't think I would have done if I'd had the diagnosis as a teenager.
Okay. Would you say that now you've found your tribe?
Yeah, although I think I think comedy in a way was me trying to find people who were weird like me. I think probably so. I've seen some of the people we've had on this podcast. A lot of those are people who I know and who I really get on with. I think Robin Ince last week or last month, didn't
Yes.
you? And I really like Robin, and I get on with him. And he's not autistic, but I can see that he is in many ways like me. And I think that when I got into comedy, I was meeting even the sort of laddier comics, which there was a trend of for the time. They were still outsiders, and I think I feel a sort of kinship with comedians more so than any other group I'm a part of, really. I think I love comedy. I love comedians, and much as if you catch me off a podcast, I'm happy to be bitchy about people. I do have a love for comedians, and I feel a sort of solidarity with comedians. Yeah, so even new comedians, I don't see any sort of hierarchy in it. I think there's new comedians, I see them as more like me than anyone else, really. So that I guess that is my and there's crossover in that. There's so much ADHD in comedy. There's a lot of autism in comedy, and so that those two things aren't exclusive. But I think comedians are the people who I never feel awkward talking with other comedians. Even if we have very different ideas about different interests and different ideas about politics or different whatever, I still feel a sort of kinship with all comedians. I think it's such a weird thing to go, well, I'm gonna travel, particularly when you're starting out and you're not making any money. I'm gonna travel to Derby and perform for 5 minutes to people who might hate me and I might be humiliated. And I think it's such a weird thing to do, that the people who end up, and you have to really stick at it, and the people who really stick at it, they're a certain type of person.
Yes. What was school like for you?
It was very difficult. It wasn't like traumatic, but certainly, I think I'd found it very hard to make friends, and to communicate with it and to connect with people. And I think I had very focused interests that I wanted to talk about, and I found it hard to connect with people outside of that. And I hated it. I think it was really, really tough. And I think that is not exclusive to autistic people. I think one of the things which I took away from doing working with young people for 5 years is just that being a teenager is really horrible and hard. And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And I think that, if you're someone who doesn't fit in because of neurodivergence or whatever, there's an added layer of it on top of that. So I think, it was that, there was no sort of horrendous trauma, but it was very, very tough. You're not fitting in. You don't know sort of where you're going to fit in the world. got to go to school every day, and school's really boring, and you hate it. You know, you don't have any autonomy, and
Yes.
and I think that's the thing which I value a lot in my adult life. It's one of the reasons why I'm the only other job which I've sort of stuck at was this job in Send, and I had quite a lot of autonomy in that job. And I think I've always wanted to do jobs where I have sort of autonomy, and you don't have that at all at school. It's like, well,
Absolutely.
you're gonna have to go to this room at this time and learn about geography, and I think that I hated it. So I didn't, yeah. But I think but also I think I knew. Did I think this? Yeah, I think I knew that I would find a way out of it, you know, and that I'd get through this, and that I think I think in lots of ways I had most of the time I think I sort of had an idea that adult life would be better, you
Okay.
know, and you've got to get through this, and then you're you know, and then you can go off and you can make the world that you want to make. But yeah, it's horrible school. It's really horrible.
Looking back now, do you think school could have done things differently for you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. And for a long time, I felt very angry about that. You know, you know, I had some good teachers, but I also had teachers who were horrible bullies. And I really remember one day, there was one of the first days at school, we all had to queue up, and there was this, you know, so we all had to line up, and then people were talking because they're children and children talk. And then one of the teachers
Absolutely.
pulled out a girl who was talking and took her down the front and like shouted in her face about her talking when she was meant to be lining up quietly. And she starts crying. And then he continues shouting, going, "There's no use crying about it. You need to pull yourself together." And like at the time, I was like, "Oh, that's really scary." And you look back on it as an adult, and you go, "What the fuck is wrong with this person?
That's absolutely
Who's
horrific.
shouting
It's
at her?"
horrific.
Like, yeah, that's not like the worst thing a teacher's ever done, but like, what is the mindset of like shouting in the face of? And I can understand as an adult, I can empathize with teachers who lose their temper because kids are really annoying, but to shout in a child's face and keep doing it when they're crying, I think is like a level of and I think we definitely had teachers who they were bullies, you know, they were bullies who I wonder whether I may be sort of psychoanalyzing them too much, but I wonder whether they were bullied at school and then they found a way to become the bullies. You know, I think there was a bit of that in some of the teachers.
It's funny you should say that because I always think the opposite. I always think if you've experienced something negative, why would you want to
Hmm.
pass that on to somebody else?
Yeah, but they say that, don't they say that in like some of like the sort of the elite private schools? You know, they have the where they're like it's called fagging, isn't it? Where they, do you know about
Yes.
this? Where they and like they're trying to phase it
Well,
out, so like it'll be like the older kids are allowed to bully the younger, sort of sanctioned that they're allowed to make them do things, and but then it's been hard to phase out because the older kids all had to do it when they were young. So they're already pissed off about it because they're like, no, now it's my turn to be the bully. And, so the cycle just keeps going. And I wonder whether that was it with some of the teachers in our school. There was certainly some sort of yeah. I think I have many flaws, but I don't think when you're talking about anger earlier, I think that I liked political comedy because it was angry, but actually I'm not someone that like shouts and gets really, really angry with people. You know, I think that, and that's not to me being like, "Hey, I'm such a great guy," because I have many other flaws. But I don't like people who can sort of be angry and just, particularly at children. I think that's I find it very hard to empathize with those people.
who was your favorite teacher or what was your favorite subject in school? That
Oh, I had
kept
an art teacher who was wonderful. Her name
okay.
was Mrs. Peel, and she was great. And I think she really encouraged sort of different thinking and my sort of weird ideas in art. And I was quite good at art. I got a B, and I think if I'd done more work, I would have got a better grade. But I think she was someone who encouraged sort of creativity. I knew that I wanted to do something creative. You know, that would be
Mm.
my job, and so that, and I think she encouraged that. And actually, I think that a lot of creative things, there is actually a blur between them. You know, I think if you, there are different ways of expressing what you want to express. So, you know, I was doing art in at school and I had this great art teacher, and you know, and then that then inspired me to go on to writing and comedy and stuff like that, because actually it's the same thing, isn't it? One, that you're trying to put your ideas across and make people, you're trying to communicate with people, and you can, I was doing that with, you know, painting and collage and whatever, but then I realized I could also do it with writing.
How important is being on stage for you?
Yeah, it is very, very important. I'm skeptical of other. I say I love all comedians. Occasionally you get comedians who don't seem to like stand up. You know, it seems there was a period certainly where it was like a route to doing presenting or acting or other things. You know, and I'm very skeptical of that. I have love for stand up. I think it's an amazing art form. You know, that it is properly. You can say whatever you want. You know, you're up there with a microphone, and you know, for all the moral panic about free speech, you can talk about whatever you want as long as you make it funny, and you can say whatever you want. And I love that about stand up, and I love the immediacy of it. I love how it's a sort of equalizer. It doesn't matter if someone's you know, it doesn't matter what school someone went to, or if they're you know, if you're a TV comedian, you get you get an extra 30 seconds to of leeway with an audience, I think, you know, but you've still got to be funny in front of them. It feels sort of more meritocratic, certainly live comedy. You know, you've got to impress the room, and and I like that. I'm conscious in this conversation, yeah, I'm like, every conversation I'm in, I'm conscious of the dynamics of it, and I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but it's like what I'm thinking is like, this is a podcast, so you're asking me more questions than I'm asking you, and that's allowed here, because I'm conscious of like, but in every conversation I have outside of stand-up, I'm conscious of talking too much or not enough, because I can do both, because I can get onto something I'm interested in, and I've just about learned in podcasts like this to be able to talk more because it's an interview. But I right now got the thing in my head where I go, oh, I should be asking you more questions. I'm being really rude. And where stand up, it's so clear the rules of it. You know, I speak for 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
Particularly like knowing when a conversation is going to wrap up. You know, when you bump into someone on the street and you don't know when the conversation finishes.
It's funny. Pierre Novelli said the exact same thing. The administration of it all.
Yeah. No, I'm literally thinking, if there's 3 people, I'm thinking 30% of time, and trying to work out the and then if you've got 6 people and people break into different groups, it's incredibly confusing. But stand up is clear, and you get that. I mean, I'd like to introduce that in conversation with the red light when you're sort of 2 minutes left to wrap up. I quite like that.
What's been your hardest gig? I know you've been to Liverpool. Was Liverpool a challenge? Was Liverpool a challenge?
No, I like Liverpool. The joke I always make about in Liverpool is that that Scousers are always really proud of Liverpool, and all you do is bang on about how great it is, and then when you get there, you go, "Oh fuck, it is really great, isn't it?" And I think my description was, it shows what could happen when a whole city stops reading the Sun newspaper. That's what Liverpool is. And,
you better believe it. A bit more critical thinking.
Yeah. The little art gallery just appear out of nowhere.
You know, my gosh.
And but I think Liverpool's great. I mean, it's always like a little bit sort of bonkers, but I like it. Tough gigs. I did the adult weekender at Butlins in Minehead, and that was horrible.
They just rewind. Adult weekend in Butlins.
So it's like people. What is the target audience? Is people about my age who would party lots in their 20s, and they've maybe there's quite a few divorce parties in, right? So they're clearly trying to go as hard as they did when they were in their 20s, but no longer are physically able to. And so it's a Saturday afternoon, they're all hungover, and they hated me. And but no, it was worse than that, because they didn't hate me. They were just indifferent to me and didn't really understand why I was doing comedy. Because a few times, certainly when I was newer, if a gig went so badly that they all hated me, you can make a virtue of that, and you can make it into a funny thing where you're like, oh God, I'm gonna do another 5 more minutes, and then I'm gonna go then, and you can sort of make a virtue of it. Oh, it's funny how much I'm dying on my ass. But they didn't even want to get on board of hating me. They didn't have the energy to do that. They were all hungover. It was awful, absolutely. They were all dressed in lederhosen as well, because it was like Oktoberfest themed.
Okay.
And I think this is a very funny joke. At one point, I said to them, "This gig is the worst thing that the Germans have ever done," and they've got nothing, no laugh at all. Apart from I could hear one of the comedians laughing backstage. Yeah, that's got to be the worst. Yeah, 20 minutes feels like such a long time. That's something you look at your watch and you go, "Oh, nope, there's another 10 minutes out." But generally, I don't. This sounds very arrogant, but I don't think there is. I think gigs are nice now. I think most people who run comedy clubs know how to run them properly, and people who go out want to have a good time. And if you sort of, once you get to a point where you sort of know what you're doing, it's hard to. You don't often have sort of bad gigs really. Once you're sort of. I think that there seems to be, when I started, there used to be more of the sort of jonglers and stuff like that, which don't exist in the same way now. I think gigs are a little bit more friendly than they used to be.
Yeah. Are there any gigs you, aside from the lederhosen one, are there any gigs you think about that think I could have done this better, or you've lost?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But that's, I think that's how you get good at comedy is, and actually that's quite an autistic thing, where when I would have a conversation, I would go away and think about how I should have done that conversation better. Like in person to person, I go, I should have said that. I've sounded weird. I should have asked them about their partner or whatever. And that can be unhelpful. But when you're a stand-up, that's a really helpful rumination to go on, because you do the gig, and if an interaction doesn't quite land, you drive home, and on the way home you go, what should I have said then? How could I have made that go better? And even just telling jokes, where you go, oh, why did they pull back when I said that? Oh, well, maybe it's because I did this joke that, like, sometimes you've got to establish who you are before you do certain jokes. And I think that there are some jokes where I have to establish trust in order to do them. And I think I learned that from doing gigs that were a bit weird, and then driving home and going, oh, they didn't laugh at that joke, but then the other night everyone laughed at that joke, so why didn't they? And sort of trying to work out the psychology of it. And it's not sort of regrets, but every gig I think about it afterwards and think about what I would have done differently. And I think that can be a really, of course, it's definitely a productive thing, because occasionally you'll meet open spot comedians who are incredibly confident, and they think every gig's gone brilliantly, and they're never going to get better than they are, because they walk away going, absolutely smash that. And I think it's a weird thing in the arts where you need the sort of delusional confidence to keep going and keep going, but also you need the self-criticism to reflect on what you've done and try and make it better. And
absolutely. Tell me about the writing then, because I know, why did you enter into that? Is it an extension of the stand-up routine?
Yeah, well, it came first because I wrote the book about OCD when I was a teenager, and I was doing some talks connected to that book.
Stop. You wrote a book as a teenager about OCD?
Yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't know. So I had OCD when I was a teenager, and then I wrote a book about it, and that got published when I was, I think I just turned 16 when it was published. So I was doing some talks connected to that, and I do a few sort of jokes in the talks, and I really liked that. And I was watching stand up, and then so the writing came first, really.
Okay.
I think that it's often been a thing said, which I've sort of not liked. That I think people probably see me and go, "Oh, the writer is more of a writer than a performer." So so I've had sort of writing opportunities come up from people seeing my stand up. And then more recently, I've sort of lent into it more, where I've been writing for some kids TV shows, and I've wrote a second book, and I've got a third book which I co-wrote coming out next year, which is more of a comedy book I wrote with Abigail,
Okay.
who I do the podcast with.
Can I ask, that first book at 16,
Mm-hmm.
how was it received?
Yeah, I think it was sort of almost pre-internet, before sort of social media really taken off. So it didn't have the immediate feedback that maybe books would have now. There wasn't good reads and stuff like that. But yeah, I still get a little royalty check every 6 months. And I think there weren't many books written about OCD or about mental health generally, and there weren't many books written by people who had experiences of it. So I think it was very, very well received and useful. Maybe not so much because it was a masterpiece of literature, but because people weren't talking about it, people weren't writing about it. So if you are the first person to sort of talk openly about a thing, then it can be, if you just do something that other people haven't done yet, then you can be ahead of the curve.
Okay, so here's my thinking at this. It's published at 16. Not the thing that it opens doors up for you, but it must have given you confidence that, wow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a very precocious child. Yeah, it made me sort of think that, I can do things like this. And I think that's I was very, very lucky with that, and I think that's a big one of my other sort of soapboxes I can get on is around sort of class and comedy. And I'm not from poverty. I'm from a sort of lower middle class background, but I think that for so many people, the arts isn't seen as like an option for them. And I think having that book published did make me feel like, oh, this is a thing people can do. You can write a book and have it published. This is a thing that I can do. And so I was very lucky that, my mum was very encouraging of that. And she was the one who sent it to a publisher's. Yeah, that made me think, oh, this is an option.
Brilliant. Tim's asked a question. With your OCD, did you have CBT therapy?
Yes, yeah.
And how was
it? It was very effective. I know it doesn't work for everyone, and that people have different views on it, but I found it very helpful. And it took me from a place where I was very, where it was something which was very debilitating, to where I was able to sort of do whatever I wanted. It's not really a problem for me anymore, the OCD. And so I found it very, very useful. But I think I probably had more sessions than a lot of other people are able to get. That this was, the NHS wasn't quite in the mental health services weren't in quite the strain that they maybe are now. So I had a lot of CBT sessions and some follow-up sessions, and my parents were quite supportive of doing things, doing bits of CBT work outside of the therapy sessions. So yeah, it worked.
How debilitating was it for you, the OCD?
It would be, I think I worked out it was 440 times I'd have to tap a table before I left the classroom at school, because it would be each surface 575, 10, 575 times. So it was just constant monologue in my head of trying not to have these intrusive thoughts about having to. So it was intrusive thoughts that meant I had to tap things in certain sequences. Yeah. So it was constantly trying not to have those thoughts. And then if those thoughts came in, then tapping things in those sequences. And you'll know about OCD that like it's always like I was on the side of caution. So I'd have to make sure that I tapped the sequences exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah, it was completely debilitating. I wouldn't have been able to do any of the things I'm able to do as an adult if I hadn't had some sort of help for it, because it was it took all. That's the thing that I think people misunderstand about it, is it wasn't like this horrendous traumatic thing. It was an incredibly time-consuming thing.
Yes.
Every day I would just spend all my time doing things. So it was just this 24/7 job that I had to do to keep, and if it went wrong, then that would be very distressing. but most of the time it didn't. I didn't let it go wrong, and so I was just spending all my time, tapping things and walking in certain sequences, that sort of thing.
Did your parents get onto it? Were they aware that this was OCD?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it was initially they took me to my GP, but it was like a locum GP who didn't really understand. So then it went under the radar for a sort of a fair amount of time. But then once it was explained to all of us, I was talking to when I was talking to the students today at the university that I think it's so hard to explain to anyone who's sort of someone in their 20s now, to explain what the sort of culture around mental health was when I was 16, because we didn't know what mental health was outside of like horror films,
Yes.
My perception, and it seems so ignorant, but it was most people's perception of mental illness it's when people hear voices in their head and they tell them to go kill people or whatever. That was what the perception of mental illness was. So I think once it had been once there was some sort of psychoeducation and when my parents and I understood what this was, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot. They were very on board and very helpful. Yeah, I think it was a new conversation for all of us.
Yeah. I've refrained from asking how old you are. Deliberately.
I'm 36. I'm 36, and we're talking 20 years ago now. So not that long ago, but
it's still a lifetime away in terms of where we've been and where we need to get to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, but people there were no books about mental health, and there was very little even on the internet. And I was given a CD-ROM, CD-ROM about OCD, and there was nothing. Yeah, there's nothing out there. So it was there wasn't the information that there is now.
Tell me a little bit about your podcast.
It's called Neurodivergent Moments. We talk to neurodivergent people. It's sort of the manifesto of it is that there are limitations to any diagnostic process, and actually what it is to be neurodivergent. To define it, you have to look at all of the experiences of neurodivergent people, and it's more like I think of it in terms of like neurodivergent culture, And I think so. We talk about neurodivergent moments, or moments in people's lives where their brain has acted in a way that was different to other people's brains. So, for example, Sarah Gibbs came on and spoke about, or in the book actually, she talks about having a party and wanting people to dance. So then found out the BPM of various different songs and made this playlist where the BPM would slowly increase as the evening went on. And so Elsa Williams, I was thinking about, where she was asked to come to a breakfast Zoom meeting, and a Zoom breakfast meeting for work. And she prepared like a full breakfast to show everyone on the Zoom meeting. And then everyone was there being very professional in the breakfast meeting. And so we sort of share moments of different brainedness. Yeah, so that's what it's about. But it's a comedy podcast, and it doesn't have any we try not to be too earnest in it. We're quite happy to talk about sort of silly things. There's some earnestness sometimes, but we generally try to sort of be silly and fun, because I think that's what part of neurodivergent existence too, is sort of having fun.
Absolutely, and being able to laugh, at oneself and the things that we do.
I just think we've got shared guests: Stuart Laws, Kev Mudd, and Pierre Novelli. So we've had I imagine there's some crossover with your podcast.
Definitely. Was I wrong? But I read recently that they're looking to stop assessments.
I don't know. I don't keep up with it. I don't know. I think there certainly does seem to be a sort of a more panic about what if too many people are diagnosed, and I don't know why. What is the fear of, if more people are diagnosed, what is the worry that will happen? That's a whole big thing. But and I know people would have there are I think that One thing I do think is that I think we should be happy to have the conversation about those worries. I think if people are worried about overdiagnosis, I think we have to answer those questions. And what I would say is, I think that that we need to sort of fight for all autistic people's rights, and I think that we need to make sure that no one gets left behind.
Absolutely.
And so I think that we do need to remember when more people are getting diagnosed to sort of look at how, just to look at the diversity of autistic people and make sure that none of those people are getting missed.
Thank you. You've probably heard me say this, but I'll ask you anyway. And I think I might know your answer, but who's the most important person in your life?
Well, now it would be my baby. But yes, it's got to be my baby. And I'm very close to my wife as well. We before baby came, we would travel around to gigs together. And I'm not close to very many people. So I just have a very, very tight, I have a few good friends, and then my wife and my baby. And yeah.
What if I said you were wrong? What if I said that the most important person in your life is you?
What a deep truth bomb. Wow. I don't know whether it is when you've got a baby. I think you've got to, they become the priority.
Maybe the priority, but...
Got to keep myself alive, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I know the tables have turned and it's usually you asking the question, but how's it been on the Hurt Locker?
It's been fun. Thank you for having me. I feel like I hope that I haven't rambled too much. One thing I do find is I sometimes I say stuff on podcasts and I listen back and go, I think the opposite of that. So if you're listening to this, then don't take anything I've said seriously. sometimes I go, oh no, I'll go away and think about it and go, oh, I said that I think this, and actually, no, I very much think the opposite of that. That was my mood today. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
We finished the podcast. You switch off your laptop, your phone. You're sitting down. You've put the little one to sleep. There's a knock at the door. And it's 9-year-old Joe. What do you say to him?
Well, I'd have a few sort of logistical questions about how they'd got to the future. But
on a skateboard. On a skateboard.
Right, okay, yeah. Okay. I mean, that feels like it brings up more questions than answers. I think I don't know. I don't think I'd have much to say really, because I think obviously learning about autism was a thing which helped me to sort of have more of a sense of self. But also, I think if I'd have to tell them they're autistic and then also get them to read a load of books and meet a load of autistic people, so that their idea of what it was to be autistic was different. So I think that I think if I've just got to have a quick conversation with someone that's outside my house, I don't think there's any sort of silver bullet that would make things different. And actually, things have worked out pretty well for me. So, things were difficult when I was a child, but I have a very happy adult life. So I try not to do like a butterfly effect. Just don't do anything if you meet someone from the past, do you? don't want to change anything.
Don't change.
So, yeah. But then, so I try to not affect their life in any way, so they continued living the way they would anyway.
Joe Wells, you've been excellent on the Hurt Locker. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.